Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of full-on reality therapy for personal, business, and investing success with your host, Ron Phillips, because somebody's got to tell it like it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. Ron Phillips and Heather Marchant here.
Right.
And, I guess I should say it. Y'all are lucky I'm here because it's 82 degrees outside right now, and my boat is calling my name.
In February, it's 82 degrees.
82 degrees outside, and I am inside recording for y'all.
Man.
That's how much I love you. That is how much I care for all of you. So
much caring.
Yeah.
I am so impressed. And that is very, very cold here. Like it is very cold here. I can't even use my words because it's so freezing. We've had approaching zero over here. So
nice.
Yeah,
Well,
nice.
You choose your seat in life, Heather. So and that's I can't remember who it is that told me. Oh, I remember. Coach Mills in high school told me that. Ron, you choose your seat in life. Choose wisely. And it's because he used to play this game in class. This has nothing to do with our topic, but this just came to mind. And this was so awesome. This is back when teachers could do things like this and not get in trouble. And that's a pretty good setup for what this is. But he would play the line game, and there was another game. Anyway, they all work the same way. And that is that he would come in and he would ask a question, and you would have to go up and do it. He was I think it was a geometry teacher, anyway, math teacher of some sort. And he would ask this question. You have to go up and do it on the board. And if you get it wrong, everybody in your row loses a point. If you got it right, you get nothing. You just got it right. And then he would do people beside you. So there's no way you could get away from it. I remember one day I was like, gosh, dang it, man. Like I'm losing all these points. And he goes, Ron, you choose your seat in life. Choose wisely. And apparently I hadn't chosen very wisely. So anyway,
that's really interesting. That
is where that comes from. Coach Mills, awesome teacher, excellent basketball coach. I wouldn't really know other than the people said that because I didn't play basketball. Heather, let's talk about something completely different.
Good segue. That was great. I thought it would be fun to update because I have talked about this property of mine in Alabama several times, but now I'm on the end of it and I know how it played out. And I think it's really interesting. I had a client call this morning, and it's actually a friend of my brother, essentially. So I have moved on into actually my family reaching out to me about buying rental property, which is kind of fun. So had a call with a family member of my brother's, and I was telling him, this doesn't always go great. Because he said, well, isn't appreciation in these markets you guys sell in kind of flat? Because it's, not a sensationalized California or, Texas or something. And I said, well, let me tell you about my property in Alabama. So this house I've mentioned before with the eviction moratorium. So I'm going to just give a brief history of how this played out. So bought a property, I think this was 2019. And then about 1 year later, almost exactly, the tenant had paid on time, no issues. And then she got COVID, she said, and stopped paying rent. Eviction moratorium kicks in and I get no rent. She got COVID in November of 2020. So I get no rent. Come August, I get about a year's worth of rent in government assistance for her. Mm-hmm. So in one check, I get about $15,000 to my property manager, less their management fees. And I was like, oh, that was worth waiting, right? But eviction moratorium is still in place and she continues to not make payments. So the money runs out and I say, well, what can we do? They said, you can't evict yet, right? So I was so frustrated because of a couple of things. I had, relationships in the area because we sell property there. And one person went by for me and he said, there are 2 large dogs in this house. And I went, oh no, they're not supposed to be there. So, and also he met the tenant, that he was there at the property and the tenant came home from work, mind you, four-letter word called work. And he even said, where do you work? And she worked at Amazon, and so did her roommate, who was evidently fully pregnant. And just the two of them lived there, which was not on the lease also. She had a full family, husband and 3 kids or something that were on the lease when she rented it. So I thought that was weird. But they both work at Amazon. And my friend said, oh, starting pay at Amazon is like $30 an hour. And I said, well, they should be able to pay me rent then. So that I called animal control and I said, I have 2 dogs in this property. I'm worried that they could be abandoned in the house because they're just sitting there all day. This went on for months, you guys, months. So animal control said, oh, someone has to be at the property all day in order for us to go out there, like a huge long window of time. And so I knew what was going to happen. I just went in with both eyes wide open to this whole thing. So the rest of the story is that the eviction moratoriums lifted, takes a while in the courts because the eviction moratorium, no one could evict tenants. And so I finally get a court date with, and they finally file that she has to, I don't know how it works, Ron, you'd probably know the words better, but she has to move out by like August 31st, something like that. So court ordered to move out, she doesn't. So I keep sending the property manager by, what's happening? Is she moving out? No, she's still on the property. Her, a car's still here, dogs are here, but the tenant was never seen. So I'm going, how do I know she didn't just leave the car? And it kind of looks a little fallen apart anyway, and leave the dogs and just vacate. And I didn't know. They just said
where's the sheriff during all of this? Did we not get the sheriff involved?
So I called the sheriff's office. I remember I was mountain biking on a Friday afternoon, and I called the sheriff's office. So I still remember where I was when the lady told me. So we only have 2 set out teams, Heather, and we are so far behind because the eviction moratorium was finally lifted and all these people are getting evicted. So she said, plan to have them in there till the end of the year. So that was like early September, and I was dying. So I called the sheriff's office probably 4 times in over those few months, just to say, hey, what's the status? And they would just say, yep, we're working our way down the list. Gonna eventually get them out. So the day comes last week. The day came. I got a notice from the attorney that they were gonna be set out the next day. They were gonna set all our stuff out at the curb. So, moment of truth. The dogs had destroyed that house. Oh my gosh, the photos were depressing. And the dogs ate up all the trim up to as high as their head could reach. So like the baseboards.
At least, Heather, it wasn't a child that had done it. Like in my previous example, where they ate all the drywall.
Oh, true. That's right.
I mean, at least it was a dog. I mean,
true. You couldn't get mad at a dog. Well, I'm kind of mad at the dog. No, I mean, I couldn't get mad at a child. I meant to say I'm mad at the dog. So,
I was a little mad at the kid. and his mom that literally watched him do it, but that's okay. Keep going. Dogs have destroyed the house. Dogs have destroyed the house. One of the walls is even ducked. Wait a second. Time out real quick. So this is apparently one of those Get Real parts of the Get Real podcast because this story doesn't sound good at all, Heather.
Yes. And I've been told by clients before that on here, we mostly are singing the praises of real estate. And this will be my example that I send out when I am told that, we paint it with rose colored glasses, because we definitely don't.
Okay.
So one of the walls even was put together with duct tape, like 4-foot section by probably 5 foot, just like duct tape wall.
And listen, if you're going to tape something together, at least use Flex Seal, because Flex Seal is clearly the better choice. I mean, you can fix a boat and go out and row with it. I mean, there's all Flex Seal is a far better choice.
This is the infomercial for Flex Seal.
Yes.
Pause for the commercial break.
Yeah, we'll include our affiliate link.
Yeah, right. So I get the first bid comes in at $15,000. The second
nice.
Bid, yeah, nice. The second bid comes in at about 9,000. But when I looked at the pictures, and I just moved primary residences last week, so this was all happening during that time, I said to myself, there is no way. Just paint and all the trim and everything else. I just don't think you can do that for $9,000. So I called up a rehabber that rehabs properties for us out there, and I said, can you go take a look at this house and just haul off the trash for me, so that I was worried that people would see the stuff all set out on the street and want to go in and steal appliances, just begging for, hey, no one lives here. And he went by and said, oh, Heather, he said, there is dog poo in the basement. And he sent me a photo. It was like every few inches. It wasn't like there's dog poo down there. It was like it was like a litter box.
So Heather's house at this point, just so everybody understands, Heather's house at this point is the house that all of the wholesalers and, all the deep discount, like all these people, this is the house that you want to see when you walk in, because they're just, the cash register is just going as they're walking through, because Heather's in the business, but just put yourself in Heather's shoes and you're not in the business. And this nightmare now is upon you. It's pretty easy to receive one of those and go, just get me out of this thing. It's horrible, right? Okay.
Yep. So the rehabber, when he went in there, Ron, that was a great segue. You didn't even know. He said, so I'll buy this house from you. And I said, well, tell me about that. It would basically be a wash for me. And I'm negative because this lady didn't pay me for so long. So, and now, it's worth about $50,000 more than I paid for it. So I paid $125 for it, and it's worth $175. So he basically says he'd pay me roughly $125 for it. And I said, here's the thing. I said, I'm going after this tenant. I'm not that person, but with something like this, I became that person, that I'm going after them and filing a suit against her. And I want to be able to show these losses. And so I talked to the attorney. The attorney said, you just send me your receipts and what you paid to fix it up, and we will go after the tenant for owed rent plus damages. So I'm not going to sell it in its current condition. I am going to do all the fix up, probably then sell it because there's so much equity in it. And I ran a return on equity, got updated rents and everything from the property manager. So I did take a minute to decide if I would keep it and rent it out again, or if I would sell it. And I've made the decision that I will sell it. But all the major mechanicals are in great shape. The roof, the HVAC, the hot water heater, all of the major mechanicals, great shape. So now this is the get real part of it. I think is interesting. It's painful. And I just moved and I'm doing new carpet and paint in my current house. So it was a bad time financially for me to get an unexpected $15,000 expense because I'm going with the higher bid. However, I looked at my numbers and I still roped it on this property. Like, how is that even possible that between depreciation, appreciation, and principal reduction, despite being negative cash flow, I'm going to be solidly in the green, and I'll still go after the tenant. So,
yeah, I think that's the piece that people get like super frustrated. And that's literally why we built our software, Heather, is because people only see the P&L. That's the only thing they see. And it's only one of the returns. And I mean, I look at this as kind of like the apartment complex, right? You go in there and you sink a ton of money into it. And for a year or two, you really don't make hardly anything. And then after that, it starts to produce. This is just an unexpected one of those, right? It's just like I didn't know I was going to be doing that. And that's not really what I signed up for. But because there's 4 returns, I thought, put this into like a stock. If the same thing happened to a company for which you bought a stock, you're just screwed. There aren't 4 returns. There's 1 return. And if the CEO of that company F's up the company to the point where it becomes public, which this clearly would have, the stock price would have tanked. And there's not anything you can do about it. Nothing. I mean, you can hope that they turn it around. You can hope somebody does pick it up at a bargain and then turns it around. But all that time you're just sitting at a loss, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yes.
That's the power of full returns. And it takes time for that to play out. That's one of the things too that I think people just fail to understand, is that this is a long-term deal. Sometimes there's these hiccups, and sometimes they're like, huge hiccups that, even kind of, the kind of hiccup that where like you puke a little.
Yeah.
It's like that. This hiccup is kind of like that. A little came up with it,
Yes.
How's that for a visual? Is it pretty good?
Fantastic. That was amazing. I wanted to go through the numbers because literally I have them in front of me, because I went through this as an example of like, yeah, this doesn't always go according to plan. So with this client this morning, so it's pulled up on my computer already. So my down payment on this house was roughly $30,000, so including closing costs, right? In my 2020 tax return, my tax savings, because I did cost segregation and accelerated the depreciation, was $36,669, $37,000 about in depreciation. So then, because she did pay me, and then she got some assistance for the second year, I actually am not cash flow negative for the history of owning the property. I'm actually cash flow positive for the history of it. Then I have principal reduction of my return on investment for paying down the mortgage is 17%. And that's just paying down the mortgage. And granted, one of those years I paid down the mortgage myself with no rental income. So even if we drop that in half, it's still like 8% of principal reduction. Then my appreciation rate of return on my $30,000 investment is 205%. So all in all, I'm like doing some quick math here. It is 375 or so percent.
And you owned it for how long?
Since 2019.
So 4 years?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that goes by fast. Although
that's almost 100% a year.
Yeah, even with the train wreck of the last 12 months.
Yeah, and let's say that the trade cut it in half. Let's say it didn't appreciate that well or whatever.
Yeah.
Still, and that's the thing. Like you can throw the 200% appreciation number out the window. Let's say it just stayed flat.
Yeah.
It's still 200% over 4 years. That's 50%.
Yeah.
Now,
true.
When you pro forma these and we're presenting them to people and we're talking about on the show and it's all rosy and everything else. Well, that is rosy. The return is rosy. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. Over time, real estate outperforms every other asset class. Hard stop.
Yep.
And you can have a rough time, a rough go of it. It can really eat up your time. And it can become a pain in the butt. But it was 50 to 100% a year.
Yeah. And still worth
for 4 years.
Yeah. Still worth it.
Yeah.
The interesting part is on our investor portal, most our clients may not know this because we added this functionality and it's kind of small up in the corner, but you can make the return historical over the entire ownership of the property, or you can annualize the return, right, over just the last 12 months. And if I were to take a snapshot of the last 12 months and ignore the previous numbers, my cash on cash is negative 40%. That would piss anybody off, right? I'm losing 40% on my investment.
And that's the number everybody looks at, right?
Yes.
Look, here's the thing. The reason for the positive cash flow is that the property can over time take care of itself. Okay. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you make a return as well. So on Heather's, it sounds like she barely made a return, but mostly the property took care of itself over those 4 years. And then the other 3 returns kicked in. If you hit all 4, I mean, it's unreal what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
True. I think for me, it's been a wake up call to take a look and see and break this out, because most clients don't have that ability, like Ron was saying, like you were saying, Ron, to do that and to get a real view of it by taking a step back, kind of the forest through the trees thing of just not being able to see it because what's happening right in front of me right now is a total disaster. But taking a step back and looking at the history of owning the property. And I think that is so important. I've been working the last 2 weeks on customer service, issues and problems that clients are having with their properties. And I would say almost every time, maybe 9 times out of 10, I'm like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's look at the overall picture instead of what's right in front of you and the problem that is right in front of you. And let's really look at how the property is performing overall. So,
yeah. And I don't know who it is, but clearly you listen, who thinks that we only do rosy stuff on here. I mean, I had an apartment complex that burnt down with no insurance. I mean, I don't know if you remember that story or not, but I think there's very few people who can say they stood inside of their building as a wing of it burnt down, talking to the insurance company saying, you don't have insurance. I don't know anybody else who's had that happen to them. So
you're the only one.
It's not all rosy. It really isn't. And, when you're in the middle of, I can tell you right now, when I was standing in there, I mean, I had multiple oh crap moments where, I'm thinking this is going to cost me millions of dollars. I have no insurance and I have investors over here I'm going to have to make whole. That's what I was thinking in my head. Right. And I'm going, and then I just reached out. I knew that somebody has been through this before. Somebody knows how to do this. And sure enough, there were people who did. And I got through it. It took me months to work through that. But ultimately, I told you guys that thing turned out to be it was an unbelievable deal. I sold it without rebuilding it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So real estate is rosy. That's why it sounds like we're always talking about it rosy, in spite of the fact Heather just had a horrible thing happen to one of her houses.
Yeah.
How do you say it was horrible?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how do you say something's horrible if you make 50 to 100% on your money every year for 4 years? I don't know how you present it any other way. Heather was laughing as she described it. Now, I can tell you, every time we did a presentation and showed people like the portal and stuff, and this property is sitting in there, Heather's like, yeah, this one sucks. And I could feel it every time we talked about it. She's like, oh man, this property sucks. Now she can go in there and go, yeah, this property sucks. I sold it and I made, I made 96% for 4 years straight. And it was choking the life out of me the whole time.
And I'll do a 1031 exchange and buy 2 in its place.
Yeah. So put it in perspective, people. Put it in perspective. All right. I'm not sure there's more. I'm not sure there's much more we can say about that.
Oh, I think it was perfect.
I can come up with another Coach Mills story, though.
I think putting it in perspective would be get out there and make something happen this week, because you just have to remind yourself of that. And if you don't have someone in your life that can help you put it in perspective, find someone like you were saying, Ron, find someone who's done it before, if you have an investment consultant here at RP Capital, talk to us about it, because you need someone that can help you take a step back and take a look at a property that way.
I have the perfect segue.
Oh, tell me.
So when you compare this to any kind of other investment where you're basically just, betting, it reminds me of a Coach Mills story.
Go Coach Mills.
Coach Mills was such a cool teacher, man. So Coach Mills used to bet sodas. He used to bet, specifically Pepsi, I think, was his soda of choice. And he would bet students on sports games. He would bet students sodas. Oh my gosh, this is so good. He always won because he was the one who chose the spreads. So Moral of the story, he only lost once, 1 year, and that was because his team was in the World Series, and he wouldn't bet against his team. And they lost, and so he lost big time. But generally speaking, he would win enough soda for the whole year, and he would just stack his cupboard up with sodas because he always won. Now some students won, and he won, but he was the house, so he always won.
Yeah, for sure.
That is how the stock market works. That's literally how it works. All the stockbrokers, they always win. Because they get paid up, they get paid down, they get paid sideways, they get paid if it implodes, they get paid all the time. Always. They always get paid. So don't bet against the house. Oh my gosh. And that's even better. Don't bet against the house. The house always wins. Real estate always wins.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't even set it up that way, Heather. That's just
true.
how it came out.
And I didn't even catch it. So winning over here.
Pun intended, people. And on that happy note, rosy note, get out there and make something happen.
Mm-hmm. In honor of Violet House.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.